So Florida CEO Rick Scott is somebody who should be serving a huge amount of time in a federal penitentiary someplace, along with other people who have defrauded the federal government. And again, who was it mentioned the other day? If Rick Scott would have done this in China, the Chinese premier would have sent somebody over, 3 or 4 people, who would have taken him out behind the nearest hospital that Rick Scott ran and put a bullet in the back of his head and then sold his organs. But in this country, after you are fined $1.7 billion, your company is anyway, after you've been forced to resign, after all of that, then you take the money you stole, spend tens of millions of it, $73 million, to become the CEO of a poor, sad state like Florida. Poor, sad state? Yeah, that's right. If you don't know why I call it a poor, sad state, read any of Carl Hyacint's books, and you'll know. So there he is. Now, Jeb Bush, former Governor Jeb Bush, had to weigh in on this thief, because Jeb Bush is a thief, a con artist, and a liar, too. Former Governor Jeb Bush said that Rick Scott, quote, will have willing partners in the legislature to do bigger things, end quote. Oh, my goodness. Mr. Bush said that Mr. Scott's business expertise, his business expertise would be particularly useful. Jeb Bush said, quote, Medicaid reform, continued education reform, and business climate improvements are all places where I expect our new governor's experience will be helpful, end quote. Jeb Bush. I'll be a son of a bitch. Medicaid reform. Really? How about this, Jeb? Just let Rick Scott steal all the money. That'll reform it, right? That'll get those poor, drug-tested welfare recipients off Medicaid. Let Rick Scott steal it. He seems to be very good at that. Stealing other people's money. People who come into his filthy chain of hospitals sick, distraught, freaked out, fighting insurance companies. And there's Rick Scott right there, ready to relieve them of their wallet. My God. But Rick Scott, he going to be a good governor. Yes, he is. He's going to be a good Republican governor. He's going to take care of things. He was forced to resign as CEO of Columbia HCA in 1997 amid a scandal. Scandal? Over the company's business and Medicare billing practices. Billing practices? I have a problem with my practice where it concerns making sure my .30 caliber rifle is sighted incorrectly. Usually what I will do is go to a range, and I will have the instructor there to help me make sure that my scope and everything is sighted incorrectly. So when I go to shoot a deer, I'll be able to shoot him where I want to. Well, I decided to change. Instead of going into the shooting range, I now go into the bank for my target practice. And you know what? I've never been able to get a single shot off, because every time I walk in, everybody just starts handing me money. He was forced to resign as CEO of Columbia HCA in 1997 due to a scandal over the company's business and Medicare billing practices. But Rick didn't do anything wrong. Nah. He was forced to resign by an impetuous board that said, all right, Rick, you've stolen enough. Bye. The company ultimately admitted to 14 felonies. A company. How does a company talk? See, a company is usually a filing in some lawyer's office. So you pull open the filing cabinet. Oh, yeah, stuff is still filing papers. And the papers leap out of the file and say, And then the attorney sits there and says, my client, this sheath of papers that represents Columbia HCA, just pled guilty to 14 felonies, and we agreed to pay the federal government $1.7 billion. And then if you're an enterprising investigative reporter like this dork that works at New York Times, Damien Cave, you turn to the sheath of papers and you say, are you really pleading guilty? And the sheath of papers, which is the company, will say, oh, okay. And the attorney will say what that means is, well, he's pleading guilty, but only as a way of ending, which has been a very trying time for Columbia HCA. We want to get on with the business of of helping people get well again. You know, we forced our CEO, Rick Scott, to resign. Why doesn't the enterprising reporter ask Rick Scott about that? Hey, Rick, how much did you stick in your own pocket? You know what kind of answer you get? Oh. Okay. Republicans. Now, you think Rick Scott's attitudes toward public money, isn't that funny? He runs a company that steals as much as they can steal of public money, tax money, Medicare money. Where do you think Medicare money comes from? Huh? Where do you think it goes? Certainly not from Rick Scott. But he and his company relieve millions and millions of dollars. And then he gets elected governor of Florida. Pretty good gig, huh? What do you suppose he's going to do as governor of Florida? Somebody better lock up the state treasury. They better keep that away from old Rick. Watch out now. But make sure, Rick, you get those welfare recipients drug tested, right? How about drug testing former CEOs who take over state legislatures? How about that? You want to do that one? No? Why not? Oh, it's beneath you. Well, of course it's beneath you. Would you submit, Rick Scott? I mean, you're a former CEO. You're a big guy, right? You're now the governor of Florida. Why should you submit to a drug test? Jesus Christ, what are you suggesting, Mike Malloy? That I do drugs? But let's get the welfare recipients. Everybody likes to kick their asses, right, Rick? Everybody likes to stomp on them, right, Rick? How many of those people did you screw over when they were Medicaid recipients, huh? Jesus, Rick, you're just one hell of a man. You and Carly Fiorina and Meg Whitman, boy, you guys really prove. Do good in business, and then you can become governor. Well, some of you. You go, Rick. Only in America, only we could produce these kind of swine, this kind of scum, this kind of rapacious capitalist pig who cheats and lies and steals and then gets his ass elected governor. How? By spending $73 million. Where'd you get the money, Rick? Come on, Rick, where'd you get the money? By pulling up your bootstraps, right? God have mercy. Well, I'll tell you, if you combined the kind of Republican entrepreneurship that Rick Scott so obviously represents, with the willingness and ability to commit massive fraud, theft, lies, cheating, deceit, why, my goodness, even you can become... Oh, you also have to have a huge amount of money in reserve that you can spend to buy the governor. $73 million to become governor. It's not about the money, right, Rick? I mean, what's the governorship pay in Florida? A couple $100,000? Lunch money, right? Lunch money. You probably gouged that much out of one or two patients over the years, right, Rick? Typical Republican. Typical American capitalist. Buy up all kinds of hospitals, consolidate everything, fire people, and then steal every goddamn thing you can get your hands on. Who's going to stop you, right?